Live while you are young, they said. Travel, create, make money, throw away, build, they said. Bigger, better, more and more. Tomorrow, don't worry about tomorrow. We live in the now, they said. Welcome to 2022. Famines, animal extinctions, droughts, deforestations, hunger, flood. The tomorrow they were too busy to worry about. This week on Woman to Woman, it's all about climate change. So, are you willing to miss out on this one? Friday, 3 p.m. We are women. We are brave, strong, capable, unique. We are Women to Women.
Good afternoon, South Africa. Good afternoon to all our audience throughout the world. The topic of today is very pertaining to everyone, not necessarily to South Africa. And you know what, girls? I'm enjoying this series we're doing during the month of September, talking about lessons we learn from Mother Nature. Because today we are going to go and learn another lesson, and particularly for the youth. But the mature audience is not excluded entirely. Today we're talking about climate change. If I could summarize the topic of today, I would say that if we don't respect the laws of nature, we might be sure that we will be sure calamity might strike. That's the fact. But not only the laws of nature, and you're going to find out in due course. Before we go on, let me try to define in a simple manner what is climate change. Climate change are the long-term changes that we have in temperature, in nature, in weather, in landscaping, because of modifications mostly done by human beings on how we deal with the nature. So when we have the commodities that we enjoy today, like gas, fuel, and oil, and we burn them for our daily lives, we are contributing for that climate change. I want to talk about 5 contributing factors. Let us see it together.
Here are the 5 contributors to global warming. Electricity generation and heat production. This accounts for approximately 28% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. Electricity generation occurs mainly in thermal power plants. Thermal power plants produce electricity by burning coal and other components. Transportation. This comes in accounting for 28% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. In South Africa, the country saw its record number of vehicle sales in August 2006, with 65,689 units sold. When looking at the global picture, it's easy to understand why this becomes so alarming. Industry. The figure is an alarming 29% when including all direct and indirect emissions from industrial processes. Commercial and residential emissions. Residential activities such as cooking, heating, using air conditioners, and poor treatment of waste contribute to greenhouse gas emissions. Agriculture. Farming takes a toll on the environment by releasing nitrous oxide into the air, a greenhouse gas. Alarmingly, emissions from the agriculture sector have been increasing gradually, with carbon dioxide emissions rising by approximately 80 million metric tons over the past 26 years. And that is only a glimpse of our contribution into the current alarming state of global warming.
I just want you to realize that all the 5 contributing factors are man's doing, are not natural changes in the weather or in our landscaping. There is an action of humankind. And when we think about this and we consider the effects of climate change in Southern Africa, the floods that we had in Durban recently, population, overpopulation in certain areas, extensive droughts, they are all the consequence of climate change. In other words, when we're talking about climate change, we're talking about let us live the here now without considering there will be a tomorrow. Just to add to that, let us see some of the disasters we have seen recently in the whole continent of Africa, which were caused by climate change.
In recent times, Africa has seen a number of natural disasters which are proving to be the devastating impact of climate change. Locust swarms. This year saw the biggest locust swarm in 25 years attack the Eastern Cape, Northern Cape and Western Cape, causing havoc and costing the government 82 million rand to handle the disaster. This came after some parts had already faced 4 years of brutal drought. The locusts covered about 10,000 rugby fields of land, destroying crops and people's livelihood. Flooding. This was one of the deadliest natural disasters to hit the country in the 21st century. Over the 11th to the 12th of April 2022, intense rains hit the eastern coast of South Africa, causing floods and landslides across the province of KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape. More than 400 people died as a result of the floods, which also destroyed more than 12,000 houses and forced an estimated 40,000 people from their homes. It is stated that the rainfall over the 2-day period was 48% more intense than it would have been if it had not been for climate change. Drought. 4 years of severe drought in Kenya, Somalia, and Ethiopia have left the region of the Horn of Africa facing catastrophe this year. It has been called the worst drought in 40 years. 22 million people are at risk of starvation, and 1.1 million people have been forced to leave their homes in search of food and water. Tropical storms. The tropical storm Anna has affected northern Madagascar, crossed over to Mozambique, Malawi, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. Madagascar has seen at least 48 deaths, and 130,000 people have been forced to flee their homes to temporary shelters. In Malawi, this disaster has caused displacement of 49,214 people, and this includes people living with disability, women and children. 107 people are in hospital for serious injuries, and 11 deaths have been reported. In Zimbabwe and Zambia, the eastern parts of both countries received torrential rainfalls, floods, and strong winds. These are only a few among so many other disasters which are triggered by climate change in recent times in Africa.
What is the human impact?
Okay, as you spoke, that humans are the ones who are really affecting this climate change. And they do this by overpopulation, by polluting the earth, so pollution, and burning fossil fuel, which means they're burning coal or burning oil, and it affects the atmosphere, it affects everything around us, as well as deforestation, which means cutting down of trees. And this affects us because trees, they absorb carbon dioxide and they release oxygen. So by cutting all of this down, it does affect the climate as well. So human beings are responsible for climate change.
And of course, we're very selfish because when you hear about these things, you say, but how am I going to live? We need to cook. We need to move around. We need to travel. We need the commodities that we so much enjoy today. And that is our lesson of today. When we tamper with Mother Nature, we are going to have consequences. When we don't think about the future of planet Earth, we might be contributing to great disasters. However, the climate change that we are going to explore today, it's more related to the disasters that you may causing in your life, because when you look at your current situation, you only think about the here now. You only think about FOMO. You only think about YOLO. You only think about what you can do that can bring pleasure to you. You only think about there is no tomorrow. Let us see some of the climate change in daily life.
I think the first one that we could explore is the cost of funerals. I'm going to speak about South Africa because, this is where I grew up and I have personal experience with that. So usually when a loved one passes away, the first thing that those who are left behind think about is, how do we give this person a dignified funeral? I mean, we even have companies who capitalize on that and use that line where they keep telling people, you need to give your loved one a dignified funeral. So when they start planning the send-off for this person that they love so much, the costs really are increasing day by day. People want to have the most expensive coffin. It has to be a casket, this particular one, because there's a belief, which I don't think it's really true, that I'm showing how much I love that person, how much I respected them, how much I cared about them. But we spend all of this money, which is truly, someone used an expression that we are putting money in the grave, because we don't think about
literally.
Literally. We don't think about tomorrow. So because we have Ausnami here today, I'm going to say, stories that I remember growing up. We would hear stories about how undertakers, for example, I spoke about the expensive coffins. So we hear about how undertakers would allegedly take the body of the loved one who passed on, put it at night. You buy an expensive coffin, you bury that person. That same night, or maybe the night after, undertakers will allegedly go and take the coffin bag and put the body of that person, the corpse, just in the hole and close up. So people now still want to spend money on these expensive coffins, but what do they do now? Now they put concrete on top of, a coffin that costs 20, 30,000 rand. Now there's another cost of the concrete. You are messing it up. It's beautiful wood, it's all that. You're putting concrete on top of it because we don't want undertaker A, B, or C to come and dig this coffin out so that they can make more money. All of this money, we say that it's for our loved ones, but maybe it is for us to feel good, because sometimes a loved one, while they were alive, we're not really taking care of them while they were living. And now when they have already died, we spend money. But what relates to climate change, to our topic today, is the fact that when, for example, a husband dies, there are still children left behind. There's still a wife left behind. Maybe even family members, other family members who were all dependent on that person. So when we take all the funds that we have available, sometimes we don't have them available. We have to be getting into debt to give him a dignified send-off. What about the future of those who are left behind? And I'm not saying that we need to be stingy and, hold on to money. But what actually happens in townships, in the villages, is so extreme that after the funeral, within 3 months, the family is in utter poverty. Kids can't have basic things because what did we do? We took all the funds that we had available and we put it in the grave. We bought an expensive casket. We had catering. People had the best food. There was alcohol to celebrate the life of this person afterwards. But young kids can't go to school. They can't go to university because their father died.
They can't even pay off their own home, and then they have to resize.
Exactly. So they lose everything, all in the name of giving a loved one a dignified send-off. And really, if we are to take it further, I don't think that person who has passed on would actually love to see those left behind suffering. And in truth, I may offend someone, but that person doesn't see all of that extravagance that you have done because they are gone. It's just the body that is left. They don't see anything. But this is us not thinking about the future we are in that emotional state that we feel that we have to do the best for this person, not thinking about the future of those that are left, and then they end up suffering because someone has passed on.
I was also thinking of the burden it puts on the people as well, that when they are alive, because that person is not living and ripping the fruit of their hard work. But then you find a parent working so hard and they have about 4 or 5 policies to try and ensure that those kids, when they die, they will actually have that dignified funeral. Because as you were saying, it's more of a show-off thing in some cases. But we hear the older generation now that they keep saying, give me the roses and the flowers while I can still smell them, rather than when I'm in the grave and I won't even smell them or even have it matter.
But that's a reality.
Yes,
I agree with that.
It is a reality. And the sad part is we forget, like you're spending it on the day of the funeral, but you're also forgetting the purpose that the person was saving that money for. So we have inheritances that go like wasted and blown because people are just trying to put up an image whereby it doesn't really make sense, because then after the funeral, a year later, there's an unveiling and it's almost like a whole brand new funeral again. They will choose the most sometimes unrealistic stone to put it up there. Okay, we understand that the memory is we want people to know, maybe that's what they say in future generations. When I have my grandkids, I'd like them to know where my mom was buried, just for them to see as a reference. But when you think of that huge structure, and as we're talking of global warming, we never know when floods are going to come and when anything comes. And imagine if it happens in that gravesite, and I spent about 100,000 rands on getting that stone and it goes away. That is really money like being washed away that could have been used to do something more profitable. So I think it's something that they really need to think about. That person is sacrificing twice actually. Firstly, when they're alive, they're not enjoying the leisures that they could enjoy in the aim of saying, I want my family to be well taken care of. Then you, on the day the person passes away, you make the most reckless decisions and it doesn't benefit the family. So the person was just working for no future and no wealth or inheritance is left for the future generation.
Being a Christian, we know the hard reality. Whatever you do, dignifying or not dignifying, what is going to determine where the person will spend eternity? It's his or her decisions while you're alive. And also, if we want to dignify, it's our action while the person is alive. Because after, as we mentioned, it is necessary to bury. It is necessary to have a ceremony and to bring comfort to the family. But everything needs to have a sense of balance. And when we don't find balance in that, we are compromising the future. As in climate change, as we said, we need gas, we need oil, we need a lot of those commodities, but to which extent?
We also have the climate change now affecting the youngsters, because we just spoke about a mature group that gives their best in the funeral and whatever they think, but also we have now a different view when we talk about challenge. When we have the social media, some social platform that I don't think is even relevant to tell you the name of the platform, for not to get curious, but it's everywhere, where we had not long ago a case of a blackout challenge where 2 girls, very young, in US just passed away because they choked themselves trying to complete that challenge. And
the challenge means you need to choke in a way that you're going to pass out.
Yes, and as an action of nature, you are not meant to choke yourself, trying to come back as normal, as nothing happened. So they didn't make it, and they just died doing this challenge. And that is a decision that the youngsters, they need to understand, that everything they are going to do, it just doesn't exist that it's going to be just now and there will be no consequence. It's like what we are doing with the nature. And we say we because with time we try to avoid, but we came to a moment that it's being very hard to change the whole course of whatever is happening in the earth. And we have another one that I'm going to share with Tammy, is the Umlando Challenge here in South Africa, where it's a dance. And when I was doing a research...
So the first challenge is what?
The blackout challenge.
The blackout challenge.
For the teenagers and the girls, where they show themselves.
And the second one, umlamu.
Yes, where they dance. It's a dance.
But what does it mean, the word umlando?
Is history.
Umlando, but for our audience to understand.
It means history.
History, okay.
Yeah, so where they dance, but now they are trying to balance themselves, climbing walls, cars, and different places where they need to really, if I may say, to shake it and...
We can give a sense to our audience from other places. What is the umlando dance?
Yeah, they need to shake it, but to keep their balance. And in this moment where they are in high walls is when they fell and they have terrible accidents. So that young person, if she thinks just a little bit further and she considers a high place and she fails, she can even be in compromise of walking and died, depending on how it is going to be. So wherever we do now, if the climate change will be an effect. So the challenge that are bringing, and Tammy will speak more about our friends then.
Because there is a development to this one.
Yeah.
Yes. So from high buildings, roofs, on top of cars, now it's like a group of pupils, because this happened in a couple of schools in KZN, where they would go out into the streets and then they would surround cars, like oncoming traffic, and then do the umlando dance there. And so you can just imagine how shocked the driver will be. And because they don't know that it's a challenge. The one guy that gave an account didn't even know that it was a challenge that was happening. So he thought that there were people coming to rob him, and he was trying to drive. So I can imagine how many children got injured there. They were hitting the cars, taxis as well. Some of them climbed on teachers' cars doing the dance. And because I think this challenge is a challenge to see who's the dumbest of them all, like between Dama, and Damara. So it's like they even capture their faces on a video.
As if there was going to be no consequence,
Yes,
I guess.
Yes, and it's all because they want the views, they want the likes, they want the comments. So the dumbest of them all will just go there, dance, show his face, and the consequence is that they were suspended from school. Some of them got warnings, but those that could clearly be seen on the videos were suspended from school.
And they might even be expelled eventually, because if you bring disrepute to the school, they don't want to have you. What is interesting about these challenges, this hashtag challenge, whatever, in our time, Namitsu, challenge was something constructive.
Very constructive.
Yes, I would challenge you to know, for instance, tell me, the alphabet.
General knowledge.
Yes.
Things like general knowledge. Those were things that we people of a certain age, that we used to challenge ourselves to know and understand.
Read 3 books a month.
Thank you. That's a challenge.
That was a constructive challenge.
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm listening to everybody talking about these challenges, and we're linking it to climate change, because this whole concept of climate change has this problem, instant gratification. Because the people say, oh my goodness, how am I going to get to Brazil, to Dubai without an airplane? What am I supposed to do? Walk? And nobody thinks about just all the emissions from all these modes of transportation, because that's also one very high contributing factor to climate change. But the problem here is that it's not that people are going to go to a place to dance. It's the reason why they do it. Because they do it for the likes, for the posts, for the thumbs ups. I don't know what on earth they talk about.
What changes in one's life with all of that?
With all that, because that instant gratification of saying, oh my goodness, did you see how many people saw my video, it's gone viral. And for them, it's so gratifying that they want to do something that is worse, or like you said, Dama, than what they did before, or what Tammy did. I'm just going to outdo her, and I'm going to do something so reckless that everybody's going to like it. And that's what it's for. Because, the concept of instant gratification is in itself not always a problem. For example, marketing companies like to use this whole instant gratification pleasure principle that people have to give themselves an edge in business. Let's take for the church, for example. How do we use the principle of instant gratification? People need help. People don't just need help during business hours. At 2 o'clock in the morning, somebody's feeling depressed, they don't know what to do, they need to talk to someone, they're desperate. What do we have? A 24-hour helpline. That will help them gratify a need that they have at that weird hour when most people are asleep or other people are working their night shift. That one person who's feeling alone and desperate and hopeless now can instantly gratify that need for human contact by calling the helpline. So it's not necessarily something very bad. But what makes it bad is the outcome. Because we're talking about climate change because
the outcome is disastrous.
The outcome is disastrous. People are dying. The ecosystems are disturbed. The glaciers are melting, so the water levels are going up, which means that people who live in areas that are at the coast now have a problem because all their infrastructure is getting destroyed and it's getting disturbed. So the results of that instant gratification is the problem. We also have a problem of things that have been going on in the media. For example, I will not mention it by name, but there's a tavern, everybody knows about it. This is where it all started, where some people went in with guns because the children had a hands down celebration, because that's what it was. It was filled beyond capacity. There were things, there's a whole investigation going on about that. But why did those young children go there?
And how many died? And until today, a month later, they don't have the reason why those 21 children, we're talking about children because we have one who was as young as 13, why they just dropped dead in that tavern.
Yeah. And, I could take it a step back. How did they make it in there? Yeah. Somebody else, we don't know who now because, again, there's a whole investigation going on, but somebody else thought they could gratify themselves by turning a blind eye to the fact that those are underage children, minors, who are not allowed to drink legally in this country, and that's a legal establishment. So it was supposed to follow the legal rules from the board that the board and institute that governs the work that they do. They were supposed to make sure that those children don't set foot in there. But they targeted them on social media, and even if they say they didn't, they allowed them in. And when you listen to people talking about it, people from the area, they tell you that this is not something new. These children have been going there. They knew. They're there every single weekend. This is a problem that we've spoken to people about. Nobody wanted to listen to us. Now we have a disaster, and everybody's descending on the province because they think, oh my goodness, 21 children died. But you really have to sit down and ask yourself, as a community, as a nation, as a country, what are we doing wrong? And the one thing that you will always go back to is this instant gratification that we have, because it governs everything that we do. We want it now, and we want it here, and we want it because it's going to make me feel good right now. These children that you're talking about in the challenges, they don't care if they're going to get hurt. The only thing they're thinking about is not death, is not disability, is not how am I going to get down from this ledge. It's likes. The minute I say I click post, I'm going to be famous. And then they do all these reckless things. They go, imagine if the person in the car that you're talking about, Tammy, has a gun.
What is very common in South Africa.
Mm-hmm. He thinks he's being attacked because, like me, I just heard about the Umlando challenge here. I had no idea that thing even existed. Imagine now I'm out there somewhere, and then a bunch of children who look crazed stop me, and I have a gun. What am I going to do? Protect myself. There's one of me, there's 7 of them, and they're gyrating, and I don't know what's going on because now I'm scared. I'm going to want to protect myself. I'm not promoting gun use, okay? I'm just saying this
What is
something
common
that
in South Africa?
This is something that can happen.
And
a
it's
scenario-
common in the States, so much so they're talking
Oh,
about the
yes.
shooting in the States. So it's a worldwide problem now.
But they don't think about the consequences. And that's where the problem
Let
is.
me just refresh the idea, just bring to our audience the concept of this party. There is a name. What is the name?
It was the pens down party.
Yeah, but in how they call it, there was youngsters. They have a Zulu or a Xhosa name for that. Anyway, just explaining that according to the province we are at, they have a different name. But they finish writing their exams for the middle of the year, so they are going to have a break for the holidays. And to gratificate themselves, they finished writing the exams, they go party without thinking about the consequences. We saw this calamity having minors. But even if we do not exclude the fact that adults were there, over 18, what are the consequences of this instant gratification? Would not be more gratifying to be at home and resting and enjoying your holidays with family, having a circle of friends, and talk about what you hope for the next semester? However, the gratification is, let us go all out. Let us have fun. Let us not wait for tomorrow. Let us live our lives today because maybe we don't have a tomorrow. And it happened that suddenly they didn't have a tomorrow.
What I found strange when I was reading, when they said pens down, when I was in school, pens down was at the end of the year. So in my mind, I was trying to understand, but you still have 6 more months of school. You still have 2 more semesters to complete. So what are you putting down? Because that was just, I think it's where we're showing as well how it's been there for long, but with time, it gets worse.
So you have
than
twice in a year.
It was once, so that means
but
they
now
have it
it's twice.
So I was thinking in my mind, but you don't even know if you passed. And not everybody in that party did well. That's the truth about it. Everybody goes there to put on a facade like, yeah, I'm here, I'm happy. But maybe that person failed. And because they want that gratification, like, oh, Precious was there. There was one of the pictures that I saw. The girl posted a picture of herself hours before in the afternoon. She was, in their terms, slaying. Like, she looked great. And sad enough, later, her body was there. And for me, the saddest thing was, it was almost like a trail that was left, because we had your before when you were going to that place and your after now when you have passed away. And no one is actually stopping and asking themselves, but what is wrong? Because for me, as a not a mother, but then as a person that works with children, I know if you see a teen leaving the house dressed a certain way, you know the difference. You know where they're going. They dress differently going with friends. They dress differently going with guys. And maybe sometimes our parents, even climate change has affected parenting nowadays. It's all about, oh no, let her be happy, let her be free. I remember when I was a teen, I felt like I was imprisoned, so I will give my child more freedom. But today we're not at freedom anymore. It's now a mess because parents can't even parent their own children. So in the name of a parent saying, no, I want to be her friend, I want to be her girl, they are forgetting the role that they need to be as a parent to say, okay, now you're going too far. There was a question that somebody posed and said, yes, we see all the other questions that are being asked, but someone asked and said, I'm sorry to sound insensitive, but as a parent at 2 a.m. when you were sleeping and your 14-year-old or 13-year-old was not home, what was going through your mind at that moment? And that's something that I think we need to look at, that it is changing with time. We are losing control of kids being parented, and maybe they go to those places trying to find something that they're not getting at home. And the friends have become that community of support, of like instant gratification. Maybe when you do well at school, your mom just goes, okay, because she's busy with her life. And that's why the child feels the need of maybe saying, let me go out to this party and celebrate.
And what worries me is that they play with the fact, they say, let us live today as there is no tomorrow. And in those decisions, like the ones joining these challenges with all the possibilities that we have of things going wrong, a few of them are not really having a tomorrow. So it's something that they say, but they don't stop to ponder the consequences of actions that they might not really have a tomorrow. We completely empathize with the pain of those parents. We completely understand, and as a church, we pray for them. But that's something we need to take into account. So when we bring in the show today, we aiming to talk to you, youngster, who is in the same fashion. No, let him enjoy today because he might not have a tomorrow. And many are going that way, not having a tomorrow.
And another one that we have now with the craze of wanting to be a mom is we find groups of people that they know health-wise they cannot carry a baby. The pregnancy will be very high risk. They might lose their life, or the child might be born with some sort of disability. However, with the aim of women nowadays wanting to be celebrated, because now being a parent means now you're a full-grown woman, they are now engaging in these risky pregnancies. And when people try to bring sense, the person will say, no, I'm doing it for me. I have to have the baby for me. Then family will ask, do you have a partner that you will be raising this child with? And they'll say, no, there are other options that we have. Our viewers know of that. And they don't think when the child grows up, they will want to know who their father is. It doesn't matter how much you can support a baby, everything you can give them. The question that always comes is, where is my dad? And what are you going to explain to the child? Tammy touched base on something very important, that we have overpopulation in the world. And there are people that still go out and want to make multiple children and not realizing that even though you might have money, you might have all the resources that you have, there are things that the child needs in their lives that a single parent won't really be able to provide for the child, despite every other resource that you have, monetary or assets that you have. But women are now even electing to be so selfish that even when they're told you might lose your life, that person will say, it's okay. At least I'll live that few seconds and see my baby and die. But what does
that
the
doesn't
family...
make sense.
Yes, it's the most saddest thing, because they'll say, at least I'll die happy. Because some are told you might die if you give birth. And the person will want to say, no, as long as I push the baby out and I hold the baby in my arms, I can die. But
that doesn't make sense to me, because why are you going to bring a child to the world with, and you can't have motherhood, you can't take care of that child.
Mm-hmm. And they don't think of the consequences, because if, let's say, that baby passes away, who's going to take care of that baby? That baby grows up feeling guilt, because I've had friends growing up who their moms passed away while giving birth. Although people can try and explain to that child that it's not your fault, at the back of their mind, in their subconscious, they always wonder, what if she didn't get pregnant? What if it's my fault? But people are ignoring to think of all of that, because I want to have that baby shower, that glamorous baby shower. I want to have it. It looks like weddings nowadays. We don't know, are we at a wedding? Are we at a baby shower? And they don't even care about the dad. It's like the guy doesn't exist. Like, who? Like, no, I just got the baby. And now there's even now the crazier trend where when the baby is brought home, now there has to be a second, it looks like now another baby shower. Now the baby has to have branded rampers, branded shoes, and there's a whole banner at the door. Now I'm thinking, if you don't have that in your life, what are the things you're going to be doing in order for you to have that experience? So if I'm a girl from the location living in a shack and that's my dream and that's what I want, it means I'm going to go and date someone that can afford me that experience, and forgetting everything else around me, that when that person gets enough and kicks me out.
But at which cost?
Yes, when he kicks me out, me and that baby are gone. Or in some instances, the guy will keep the child and you are gone, and the child grows up resenting you. So I think that's something that we need to think of. When we think of the original concept of family, nowadays with climate change, it has gone rogue.
I think we just touched the tip of the iceberg because there are so many things we can bring about. The consequences which we don't look at. So we're going to have a break right now, give you some time to reflect if you're making decisions without thinking about tomorrow. And after the break, we are going to bring about 2 more topics that are very close to our culture in South Africa and might be affecting you somehow. So you have to come back and stay with us until after the break so that you find us out.
A void and formless earth with darkness on the deep. In the beginning was God, the Word. When I look up to the sky, I see the rising of the sun. At the end of another day, I see the going down of the same. When I hear the singing of the birds, when I see the beauty of flowers, when I behold the vastness of the sea, all nature declares you to me. And then God said, let there be light. I see His existence in all He created. I know Him more when I see all that He made. In all things I see Him, in this light I see Him. When I look up to the sky, I see the rising of the sun. And at the end of another day, I see the going down of the same. When I hear the singing of the birds, when I see the beauty of flowers, when I behold the vastness of the sea, all nature declares you to me. And then God said, let there be light. I see His existence in all He created. I know Him more when I see all that He made. In all things I see Him, in this light I see Him. How can I deny? How can I not see Him in all these wonders? How can I not believe that a perfect creator as you exist? How can I deny? How can I not see Him in all these wonders? How can I not believe that a perfect creator as you exist? And then God said, let there be light. I see His existence in all He created. I know Him more when I see all that He made. In all things I see Him, in this light I see Him. And then God said, let there be light. I see His existence in all He created. I know Him more when I see all that He made. In all things I see Him, in this light I see Him.
Welcome back. We continue with Woman to Woman, and the top is getting very heated. There are two other things that normally we don't think about, the consequences. And the immediate results are what matter. Is it so?
Okay, so this one, it's something that's it's trending now, especially in African countries, because of the trend of yellow bone. So everyone wants to be a yellow bone.
Can you explain what is a yellow bone, please?
So a yellow bone is not a person who's got yellow bones, but it's a person who's light in complexion.
And it was very popular here, isn't that?
Yes, it still is a little bit, but now we are starting to accept our natural color, the melanin that we have. So we are embracing it. But there are still some women who feel like being light in complexion makes you look more beautiful. So what celebrities, people with money, they do is that they go to dermatologists, they go to doctors to have their skin bleached. And I remember in one country, not South Africa, there was a celebrity who was promoting skin bleaching, and they warned her, like, you will die. Even if you do it responsibly via the doctors, you will die because you can cause skin cancer. And she was like, well, anyway, everything kills on this earth. You breathe air, you die. You live, you die. So why don't I do what I want, because I'm going to die anyway. But because some of the women out there do not have the proper funds to go to the doctors for proper skin bleaching, although it's not proper, they go to the small streets that we have here in Johannesburg, and they buy products, skin bleaching products. You might find it for cheap, like 20 Rand or 50 Rand, and you use it on your skin, and it's called memeza. So they bleach their...
The translation of memeza for our viewers?
Isn't it to scream?
Yes, it is scream.
Yes.
So you can imagine already the results of such product.
Yes. So what they do is they bleach their face, their face, because it's for the face, right? But then they forget to bleach their hands because we don't have a product for that. So now the face is like bright. The hands are like really, really dark, like, because that's your natural complexion. And then it looks very weird. Like, you really scream, like, when you see when you see a person, like, you have to do like a lot of takes, like, what, like you.
But worse than this, the surprise, consequences of those products.
Yes. Now they have chubabas, what we call its blemishes here on the cheeks. Now they have to find another product, and because they cannot afford to buy proper products, then they go back to that small street and then they buy something to remove those blemishes on the skin. And then because they don't, and I think we spoke about this, most of us here in South Africa, we don't use sunscreen. So now it's like, now the sun damages the skin, now the blemishes, now you're using all these products. Now instead of a yellow bone, you become like red. And your hands are still dark. So it's like, they always make a joke about this, like, when a person has a hand over their mouth with like that complexion, it looks like they're being kidnapped.
It's sad. It's sad to see.
There is something else, though, that I think happens a lot in I'll say, Southern Africa. The concept of Lobola, Mahadi, it's bride price, basically. So when a daughter is getting married, the families will negotiate, the bride price for that particular person. But it happens that in some families, the amount that will be requested from the groom's family is so exorbitant that it doesn't make sense. And, the uncles will talk about the education that their daughter has received, the kind of family that she comes from, what they have provided for her, what all of these wonderful things that in their eyes justifies that amount of money that they are requesting from the groom and his family. But what many people or many families fail to think about is that we all know that when people get married, they need to start a life together. But now, if you're requesting 60, 100,000, 80,000, however much, even if it's 30,000 from that person, and you still expect that this young man is going to take care of your daughter. He's going to give her, get her a home. They have cars to drive. They have things to do, a life to build together. where is he going to find this amount of money, to give to you as a family and still pay for his wedding expenses and still give her a comfortable life? I think sometimes family members, uncles, the parents, they think about what they are going to get in that moment, but they're not thinking about the future of their daughter. When I was young, my brother is another story about him. He used to say, before I came to church, I used to be very...
It seems like we brought him to the show without being here.
He's part of the cast today. So I used to be very lazy, not, very good with things around the house. And he would always say to my mother, when she gets married, please do not ask for a lot of money. Because if you ask for 30,000, for 50,000, when she gets there, the in-laws are going to be like, oh, clean the 50,000 that we paid for you, cook the 50,000, and you know very well that your daughter cannot do many of these things. So please do not put her in a difficult situation. Give her away or charge, ask for very little so that she doesn't have to suffer, because if you ask for a lot of money, they have an expectation that we paid 100,000, so we need to get 100,000.
It must be worth it.
You know what I'm saying? So I think this is something that we need to think about, that families need to think about the happiness of their child, because we know that finances are one of the top reasons, if not number one, that causes friction in relationship, in marriages. So now if they go and this man has gotten into debt to pay this lobola, or he took everything that he has, instead of them enjoying the new life together, they are
It's a hustle.
Fighting about money, which they don't have. There's a beautiful thing that I saw on Twitter last week where someone put there and said his family went to pay lobola for him, and the girl's family had asked for 65,000 rands. And his family went, they did an electronic transfer of that 65,000 rand. The next day, after the family came back, he received a notification on his phone for 64,000 rand sent back into his account, and received a message, I don't know whether from the mother or the father of the bride, that said to him, take this money and take care of our daughter. The 1,000 rand we took to cover the cost of the celebration yesterday. He was not expecting that.
That's
But
beautiful.
That is what we're talking about. They wanted him, to have a life with their daughter. But most family members, they don't do that. When I got married, my husband did pay bride price, but I remember my mom telling me that 2 family members told her how foolish she was, because she could have had these number of thousands in her pocket had she actually negotiated the way that she was expected to. Because I remember her telling my uncles that they're not going to talk about education, they're not going to talk about anything that she did for me, because she doesn't know what his family, what my husband's family did for him. So if they bring up what she did and they say, oh, we also have our own receipts, this is what we did for our son, what's going to happen? And she said to them, I did what I did for her because it was my obligation as her parent. It wasn't that she needs now to get me money when she gets married. But this doesn't happen a lot. And I'm not saying that she's better than anyone, but we know that most of the time, the money that is paid as bride price, it doesn't even get to be contributed towards the wedding. Someone pockets it, an uncle, a mother.
And that if the family can pay. Because what happens when the family and the groom cannot pay? They cannot get married.
Yeah, they don't get married. That is a sad reality. We have many couples, and they come to the point of living together because they cannot afford. They hide. Sometimes they go to
They
the
hide
home
from the
affairs,
family.
and they don't say that they got married because they could not afford the price.
And that opens as well a door for disrespect, because some men, they don't pay the whole price. They maybe pay like half of it. And the wife disrespects the husband and is like, don't forget that you didn't finish paying the lobola, so you can't tell me what to do. But then again, when the husband has finished paying the lobola, for some people as well, it gives them a door to abuse as well, because it's like, remember, I bought you. I own you. And you can't go back to the family and say that he's abusing me, because they will say, but he paid lobola, so now does it mean that we have to give the lobola back? And that uncle already spent everything, so now there's nothing to give back. So it opens that door for abuse as well, when everything is paid and the husband now has a right over you because he bought you.
I think of also when it comes to the children, because it gets even worse in the state where you have kids out of wedlock because I can't pay Lobola. Now that gentleman...
Kids to understand it should be very difficult.
Yes, and those kids will not change their surname unless the father is going to pay Lobola for each child. So say this gentleman has 3 kids with this young woman. We've been living all these years, and it's amazing how when they are cohabitating, no one is asking for anything. But as soon as they come and they say, we want to get married, we want to do the right thing, that's when tradition and culture comes up, it stands up. And it's so sad because we have a lot of kids that feel misplaced. And to show how crazy it is, it doesn't matter how educated a person might be, how popular or celebrated they might be in any sector of life. As long as that man did not pay the bridal price for that lady, they will say then, if you want this child to use our surname, if you want this child to have your surname, you have to pay for that child. Now I'm thinking, if they have 3 kids, how is that guy supposed to pay for those kids' tuition fees, university fees, plan for their future? But the individual that is sitting at the back and wanting that money doesn't care for that. They just want the money. And I remember when I had to get married, my mom made it very clear, and she said, whoever helped buy her nappy, pay school fees or anything, you can stand up and say something, but to me. Because that family as well has invested in their child. And I think it's something that with time, I think got corrupted, because in the past, what my understanding was that would be used to help for the wedding
That is what the
preparations.
tradition says.
Yes, so with today, someone wants to have an amount, maybe 100,000. They've never had 100,000. But as soon as time is getting married, I'm going to think, oh, I might get 100,000. But that causes more commotion, because even afterwards, they fight amongst themselves, because the number of delegates you're going to have, Ms. Masa, they're not going for free. You also pay the uncles as well. They need to get something back for themselves. So sometimes, how do you not know that what they say the bride's family is asking for is really that amount? Because they also want to pocket something. Your own uncles want to pocket something.
So, in other words, whatever we do, there will be a consequence. And only to think from the perspective of what I'm living now, the benefits I'm having now, or how to curb what I need for now, will not secure happiness in the future. So that we also read in the Word of God. Our Bible verse of today is Proverbs 27, verse 12. A prudent man foresees evil and hides himself. The simple pass on and are punished or perished. So when we are prudent and we need to make a decision, we are going to think about the consequences. Whom am I going to affect with this decision? Or how this decision will affect myself? Yes, I want to benefit from certain commodities. I wanted to enjoy life. But if I just think about today, who's going to pay my account tomorrow? Who's going to, or how am I going to deal with the consequences of what I'm doing? So the wise will refrain. And unfortunately, we see that the whole society, mankind, are not refraining from damaging nature, as you and me might not be refraining from thinking about tomorrow. We still think that we're being wise, enjoying the moment, enjoying life. However, we fall into the simple. The simple is not necessarily a condition that we should admire. Many times when we read about the simple in the Bible, it's not someone who's very easygoing. It's not about someone who is very minimalistic in his decisions. The simple is compared to the narrow-minded. Is the one who doesn't check on the consequences of his act. And here our Bible verse says, the simple pass on. It will go on, will continue making wrong decisions. and will be punished by them. Not necessarily that God will punish, but you bring punishment upon yourself, because one thing is certain, even though if we don't want to see the consequences of our decisions, we will have to deal with them. Someone else will have to deal with those consequences. So the here now should be the platform for a blessed future, and not decisions that will not consider that there is a tomorrow. The worst of all is not necessarily only to think about the consequences in this life, but which decisions you might be making that are compromising eternity. We can dispute about life here now, what I think it's important for me, what you think it's relevant for you. But there is one thing we can't dispute. We will live eternally. Now we need to make the choice. Where do I want to spend eternity? Do I want to perish because my decisions only considered my well-being, my instant gratification now? Or do I want to live eternally with God? For that to happen, as much as we have to reconsider our approach to nature, we also need to reconsider our approach to decisions in life that will determine where I will spend eternity. It's not easy, because we know we will have to deal with them. And right now, maybe you have been bombarded by the examples we gave here. It's more or less like the dress is fitting on you, and you say, what do I do now? We are going to pray for that wisdom that comes from God, the wisdom that comes from the Holy Spirit, to direct your path, and your decisions will be sound-minded for now and will have beautiful results for tomorrow. Nami, visiting us today, will you pray for them and for us as well?
Definitely. Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus Christ, we thank you so much for today's program, an eye-opener, something that made us really stop and think about what the things we're doing now are going to impact our future. Because everything has a result, everything has a future. So I pray for these women who were watching this program today and have discovered things in their lives, decisions they've made, actions they've taken that have caused them the consequences they're suffering right now. And I ask you to give them wisdom to come out of this problem without causing another problem to try to solve this one. Because usually it's compounding. People make mistakes, they try to cover them up, and they make more mistakes that make the situation even worse. So help them out of this problem, my Lord. I pray for those who have not made these mistakes, but now have learned that these are things that are very real, that can happen to them if they go on the way they've been doing. So help them too, and open their understanding and give them understanding for them to become these prudent women that will be able to save themselves at the end of the day. Over and above everything else, we know there is a hereafter. There is life after the life we live here when we breathe our last. So I ask you, Father, to help the women who are watching, to help everyone who will watch this program later, to give their lives to you, to do things that are going to give them an eternity with you. Because it doesn't matter how you live your life here on this earth. What matters is how you are going to spend eternity. If you're going to spend eternity with God because you have lived your life in a way that glorifies Him and surrenders your life to Him, or if you are not going to be with God, you're going to be far away from Him, tormented and lost forever in hell because of the decisions and actions you've taken while you were alive. I bless the women who are watching this program. I bless them with I bless the women who are watching this program. I bless them with wisdom from the Holy Spirit, so that everything they will do from today on will have this in mind. Is this action that I'm taking, this decision that I'm taking, going to give me a consequence and a result that will be good, or a result that is going to make me perish? I surrender all our lives in your hands, and I thank you in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Now you have to change the climate change. You have to change the here now for what it's going to bring for your tomorrow. Next week, we are going to be back with lesson number 4. The month of September, we have 5 Fridays. And lesson number 4 is coming your way. I'm also enjoying and learning through these lessons. And you are going to do as much. Until next week, Friday, God bless you all. Bye-bye.
Let me tell you a story of a woman. She had a dream, a crazy one, some said. Every day she would fight for it. And guess what? Rain, storms, laughters and doubts, but she never stopped. They called her crazy, told her she would never make it. And just when it seemed all was lost, after years of nothingness, all of a sudden, victory like never seen before. Do you know who this woman is? This woman is you, if you learn the secret of the bamboo tree. This Friday at 3 p.m.